First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the MBLT team for having me here. It's my first time in Moscow, so I'm honored to be here. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about stuff that we've picked up along the way, and specifically around mobile and growth, which is an area that's very important to us, Spotify. So, Spotify, if you don't know it already, it's a music streaming service. It's actually the biggest music streaming service of its kind in the world. We have 40 million active users, and 10 million of those users are actually paying users. And for those of you that are doing the math in your head right now, yes, we have 25% conversion, and it's really, really good. We're live in 56 markets today. When I started in the company, we were live in 6 markets. That was about 3 years ago, so quite a bit of growth has happened since then. But first, before talking about that, I want to bring you back in time, about 8 years ago when Spotify was first formed. So if everyone starts thinking about what phone were you using 8 years ago? What mobile phone were you using 8 years ago? Anyone?
Nokia.
Nokia. Okay, Nokia, maybe Sony Ericsson. Yeah, maybe not something like that. Because at this time, of course, there were no iPhones, there were no Androids. There were touch devices, but quite honestly, they required this little pen to touch, if you remember. It wasn't that great. So at this point in time, Spotify built a product. And that product was not mobile, obviously, because that wasn't the thing at the time. We built a desktop product, and I say we, I was part of that team at the time, but they built the desktop product. And let's think about music and digital music at this time. And if we're honest with ourselves, it was basically 2 things. It's either pirated content you downloaded, or it's iTunes. That's how it looked, basically. This was the setting when Spotify was created. And Spotify kind of looked like iTunes because that was the model at the time. But what we actually did, what the company succeeded in doing, was to license something, make it legal. There was nothing like that out there at the time. It was a free product that you could stream pretty much anything you wanted from all the world's music artists. And it was totally unique at the time. And I want to extend like a big thank you to our state-of-the-art kick-ass licensing team that we have, because without them there would be no Spotify, because obviously without music, without content, we can't work as a company. So they are probably the best licensing team in the world, and their task is difficult. When our CEO Daniel asked them to go license what we did the first time, it was kind of a Mount Everest impossible task, but they pulled it off. It took time, but they pulled it off. So basically, the business model looks like this. It's a funnel, right? We'll talk about funnels. You pour stuff in the top, and something comes out in the bottom, and some stuff kind of pours out on the way down there. And on the top, we used to have a desktop product, free product, all good. And in the bottom, we had a mobile product that was a paid product. So if you started off using a free product and really liked it, you wanted to be mobile, then you had to pay, right? This was our business model. This is how we made money, except from the actual ads that we play in the free tier. So this worked out fine until about, I would say about 2 years ago maybe, we started seeing trends of mobile taking over, right? Or if you looked at the curves at the time, they kind of like told us that if we waited long enough, the free product wouldn't be efficient anymore because people would be on mobile, and that's pretty much where we are today. So we had this. It was upside down. The first thing you would enter as a mobile user was a paywall. We gave you like 2 days of trying the product, and we said, hey, we want your money now. And to be honest, 2 days, it's not enough to fall in love with a product like Spotify. And we knew this from desktop, right? We knew that it takes more than 2 days to convert a user. So this was not where we wanted to be. We're losing users here. But fortunately, we saw these trends coming before they actually happened. And now you're going to say, why is he showing the same slide again? But that's actually what happened. We had to go back again to the licensing team and say, guys, you know that thing you did like 6 years ago? You're going to have to do it again. But this time it's going to be harder because you're going to ask for a free product on mobile. And if you're a record label, you know, they aren't the most progressive people when it comes to digital, so they like their money, what they have today. It's hard convincing them to do these things. But again, the licensing team pulled it off. It took pretty long, but they pulled it off. So today we actually have a working funnel again. We have a free tier on mobile, so we're taking in users. I would say about 2/3 of our users are coming in through mobile now, and we're converting them to paid in many cases, in 25% of the cases actually. So that's pretty nice, and that's kind of where we're coming from. And the way we look at users, it would be familiar to several of you in this room probably. It's the AAR model basically. We don't just look at like how many people download our app, how many people register. We look at the whole life cycle. It starts with acquiring users, like through, well, paid acquisition or through organic downloads or ads or whatever you do to find users. And then we activate them by they become registered users and start playing music. And then we want to retain them. So if you're in the product more than 2 weeks, then we know that's a pretty good metric for a returning user. So we can track that as retained users after they've been in the product for 2 weeks. And we track users all across this life cycle, all of the time that users are on Spotify, and we measure metrics constantly to see where we're doing well and where we could be doing better. And of course, Spotify has a big bunch of data. We have very much data actually on all our users, and that data we can use to build a better product. And the way I like to see it is we have 2 lenses that we usually look through. And one of them should be the quantitative lens. So this means like testing stuff on actual users in volume. So we can A/B test things like different UIs, even different business models in the product. And maybe you're a first-time user, you download it, but you don't know that we're testing something on you. And then we're actually gathering that data to see who performs the best, and we stick with whatever works the best. The other aspect is the qualitative data here, and that's actually something we picked up a lot lately. So we have these focus groups. We do in-house, in-home visits, and all these kind of surveys all the time to kind of measure what users why actually users really do what they do. Because the quantitative data will tell you that something's happening, and it's clear. But why it's happening, you can only like hypothesize about until you actually ask the users why it's happening. So we use these 2 to actually build a much better product. And when I started, I'd say about 80-90% of decisions were taken like without data as support. And today it's probably the opposite. We're probably about 80-90% decisions are data informed, which I think is a great thing. So this is my example of the day. And this is our latest version of our clients. We did a platform-wide redesign not very long ago, just a couple of months ago. And this was the first time Spotify was redesigned across all platforms. So we made it like darker and we made it look the same across platforms. And while doing this, of course, we did all of the research stuff that I just mentioned, but we also sat down and thought long and hard about like what in the app is working well and what do we need to polish up. And this was an excellent opportunity for us to actually work on those some of those growth things that we wanted to do for a while. So I have three mobile growth questions that I will talk about here. And one is, how much does friction really matter? And in this case, I'm specifically thinking about when you sign up your users, that kind of friction. But it's also friction in the client in different areas, of course. The other one is, can we affect any metrics around engagement with any kind of notifications? Is it good? Is it bad? Does it work? And the third one is, can we create new users using social media, or is it just not working? So these 3 questions. This rather boring table is showing a breakdown of when we looked at our competitors, how they're doing on like sign-ups and friction and stuff. And it's counting how, for instance, in here in the middle, it's counting how many taps it takes for you to sign up to a certain service using a username of a certain length and a password of a certain length. So as you can see, these numbers are pretty high, even for Spotify as well. We were not doing great. But there's one company that stands out. It has the number 0. So we're not taking Facebook into consideration here. This is like the email signups. But King.com and their Candy Crush, you don't have to register. You just press play and you're in. So gaming companies really know how to make this work. And as you know, they're pretty successful as a whole product as well. So this is something that we kind of saw as very inspiring and wanted to aim for. And we redesigned the whole intro flow in Spotify for this release. And we reduced the number of screens and the number of tabs to reduce friction. We updated, of course, the branding and the design. And we also improved like input validation. That might sound really boring, but what it really means is like, before it used to be like you enter a username, then you press next, and then you get to know like, hey, this username is taken, you know, and you have to press back and do it all over again. Now we just validate right away when you type it in. This is taken, so you don't have to waste another press to find out that this username is taken. So that actually helped quite a bit. So altogether, these three things, basically among some other things, gave us actually a 20% increase in sign up per install. So meaning like of everyone that downloads Spotify, there's a lot of people that don't install it as well, or don't register as well. But now we raised that metric by 20% just by reducing the friction in the sign up flow. So I mean, I would advise you all to kind of look in your own backyards if you work with these kind of services. I'm sure there's something you can optimize in your onboarding flows or your sign up flows, and it actually proves to be a very efficient way of improving your app. So what about this? This is a notification, right? On Android, when you update something in the background, you just get one of these notifications and it says like, well, 5 apps updated, 9 apps updated. But Spotify starts with the letter S. It's not the first letter in alphabet, you know, and we get drowned out by a lot of other apps sometimes. So you never really see that Spotify's been updated if you have like this kind of automatic updates. And that's not good, because we want people to know that the app has been refreshed. So with this release, with this new design as well, we figured why not make something a bit different, like try to actually make people notice that the app is updated and it's a really cool design. So what can we do? We also have a fair number of users that have been active in Spotify, but actually are inactive right now. So we wanted to target them specifically. So how can we wake up users? We created another kind of notification. Looks like this, much more graphical, and it triggers when you update the app. So as you can see, the other notification updates will end up below, like grouped before, but this one will show as a graphical, like rich notification. And this proved to be really efficient. We actually reactivated 800,000 users with this, and we did a similar thing on iPhone. It was 800,000 users altogether that came back and became active users of Spotify, just because of the small little notification that was, well, it was built slightly differently, but you know, it's just a notification. So that kind of proves to me that that area is well worth looking into. Okay then, social stuff. We know for a fact that the best way you can get a user to Spotify is if a friend tells you that this is a good thing, right? Word of mouth. It's the absolute best marketing thing. Screw all the other channels, because that's the best one. We know that for a fact. So if we can get people to recommend to their followers and friends that Spotify's good, it's good for us. It's not just a passive thing you do on Facebook, like automatically updating, I'm listening to this. No, this is actually something you tweet in this case. So we added a little thing to the app here. After certain metrics have been fulfilled, let's say you listen to a certain number of songs and perform a certain number of actions, you get this ask from us. So, do you like this product? Why don't you tweet about it? And then we pre-fill, of course, like with your account and everything, so all you need to do is really press tweet. And this also may seem a bit lame, but let me tell you it's not, because when we tried this, we tried it in UK first, in the market only, and we became top tweet right away when we tried this one. And it gave us, in a small period, 80,000 tweets, And that's about a 30% increase of tweets around Spotify in that particular time frame. And whether that's successful or not, I leave up to you to decide. But I feel like it's definitely also worth doing these kind of things, because we know that these kind of mentions do lead to actual downloads and regs as we go forward. So this was the third thing I wanted to talk about as an example today. So going back to our AAR framework, what did we just talk about? We talked about how to get 20% higher activation. We talked about how to turn inactivity into retention, actually. It's a really good one. And also how to increase acquisition by social channels. So I try to cover nicely all of those three letters, the AARs. And one last thing. So Spotify, obviously about content, right? We're about music. So one pretty cool thing we did, you know who this is, by the way? No? Avicii, yeah, it's Avicii. One of the world's most successful house DJs currently, I would say. He released an album last year called True, and we worked tight with him and his management to promote this album in a very specific way. We used all the marketing channels that were available just inside of Spotify. We know that there are like numerous people on Spotify that love his stuff, and we created a playlist where he added a personal kind of like Avicii message about his upcoming release, and he had a special mix on that playlist as well that was only available if you follow that playlist. And if you follow someone on Spotify, you get notified when they get new releases on Spotify. So you get like a push notif or an email when there's a new album from this artist. So the goal with this campaign was to try, can we make this album the most streamed album on Spotify? And this was challenging because not long before, Daft Punk released their album, and they hadn't released something in, actually since before Spotify was founded. It was 8 years, I think, between their latest record and the current one, Get Lucky. And that record like blew out all the records we had on Spotify. So this was a hard task to actually blow out that record with Avicii. But we did it. So in, I think, a week before, well, he hit 100 million streams 1 week earlier than the Daft Punk album, and that was super cool. And in like a month, I think that a third of our Swedish user base was listening to this album. And of course it was a great album. This is not just due to Spotify, but what I'm saying is that Spotify is not just a place for you to listen to music, it's a place for an artist to actually connect with his audience as well. And it's a content marketing channel in this case. And it works both ways, because you get value, you get special stuff from Avicii in this case, and he gets value. He gets a lot of plays, which transfers to a lot of dollars for him, right? So this is to show you that content, it's definitely still king in Spotify. And that's probably my last slide. So, any questions? Thank you.
Can you give me a microphone so there is a question?
Oh.
Вы выходите на новые страны. Как вы принимаете решение, идти в новую страну или нет? И какие главные вещи нужно сделать? Какой-нибудь такой высокоуровневый чек-лист при выходе в новую страну?
So he's asking that when you are choosing the country where to launch, how do you choose it, and what things you should do like when you launch? 3 points or something.
Okay, how to choose a new country to launch, and what things to do. Why we're choosing it. Okay, so we have a team called New Markets team, which decides when and where to launch new markets. And I mean, if you look at what markets we're launched in currently, there are a couple of ones that are missing. Russia is one, Japan is another one, big music market. Brazil, actually, is another one, also big music market. So we of course look at the market potential. We rate them in terms of like tier 1, tier 2 markets, where tier 1 is very strategically important and kind of difficult maybe to launch because it's a big market and a big music market, and we need to do a lot of licensing. And then there are the like light markets that we can launch pretty easily, which doesn't have the same kind of size. So size matters, music market size, and things to do. Well, every single market needs to be licensed separately. You would think that the majors, Sony, Universal, and those guys have like one company for the world. Not the case. You know, you need to connect with them on a local basis. Like every country has separate deals. And in addition to that, you cannot launch a market without local content. So we need to sign like all your Russian content holders here to be able to launch successfully in Russia. And I mean, it's not an option for us to launch without local music, because we would fail the market if we did that. So local music is super important, and also size of market determines like how we launch, because licensing takes time basically. Yeah.
Еще вопросы?
Maybe I'll just sit down.
Hi, the question is, so you obviously presented on major mobile platforms like iOS and Android. What do you think about smaller, newer platforms like Firefox or Ubuntu Mobile or other players that just keep coming out, and we'll see what happens with them?
Yeah, good question. So we are on several platforms. We're on BlackBerry and Windows Phone as well. And we're not on Firefox currently. Android and iOS by far are the most important for us, obviously. But I can just say that we're watching how the others are doing before we go there, basically. It's tough today. I mean, being a new platform in mobile, you need to convince like more than half of the development community to actually invest in a new platform before it becomes successful. And I don't know how Firefox are going to do, but it's an interesting concept that they're doing. But I wouldn't put my dollars there until I see a little bit more traction, probably. But having said that, I mean, they have a definite appeal to like low-end markets and that kind of stuff. So we need to watch the space, and when it reaches a certain level, that's probably when we would enter. We're not the first ones on the platform, probably. We're watching it, and then we enter when we see that, you know, it has enough potential for us.
And there is one more question.
Yeah.
I want to ask about push notifications that you are using. Is it your own tool or it's some external service?
We're using aggregation services for the push stuff, definitely. I'm not sure if we're using Urban Airship currently, but we have been playing with it before. And for Android, we're using like the regular Google Cloud messaging stuff. But iOS has some other interesting opportunities as well. And we kind of like play around a lot with different things. If we find a better tool, we switch to that. We don't, you know, we're not like, let's stick to this thing because we should. We're constantly trying to find better ways of doing things. So if we find a better tool, we'll just, you know, we'll switch to that.
And in that case, are you using some kind of recommendations or retargeting? I mean, push notifications. If the user listens to some new music, do you communicate with them?
Yeah, I mean, push notice. If you go to the client and look in the push notification settings, there's like a setting for a playlist got updated, new album release, new track release, that kind of stuff. So you can individually set what level of push you want. So we don't spam you if you're not interested, but we do send out push notice. Like if you follow Avicii, you'll know when he releases his next single or his next album. We send a push notice for that. So I think that's pretty cool because you kind of, it's easy to forget, you know, what happens in music world, and by having push notice like that, you get reminded. Oh, cool, you released something new. I'll go in, and we see that these push notices have a very high click-through rate. I mean, people use them a lot. So I think that we can say safely that they're not more annoying than helping. People do turn them off sometimes, but that's fine too, right? So it's up to you what to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
You'll have to ask me after.
Yeah, if you want to catch David somewhere, you can do it behind the stage. So thank you very much, David.
Thank you. Thank you.
Come on.